The following video it will be talked about the migration in Europe and the different effects it has had in two different countries, Germany and Sweden. The first lecture is a news from the newspaper Expressed named How Many More Deaths? Merkel's immigration policy is savage after fourth killing spree. This lecture basically talks about how Merkel should be blamed for the attacks that happened in Europe, for letting so many immigrants enter the country and acting so slow once these barbarities were made. Nevertheless, this position can be easily concerned. Germany is living under a liberalist regime and it is still trying to redeem themselves from the genocide that Hitler caused during the Second World War. Thus, it should be the responsibility of them to let immigrants enter into the country, which is what Merkel is doing. However, this help was exceeded in the moment that so many people entered into it, more than 1.1 million during 1 year, and that's where the problem begins. Merkel hadn't the control of this magnitude of people entering the country and didn't thought of the consequences of it. She put aside the fact that Germany participates in the Middle East war, and that among these immigrants, some of them could be resentful for it and takes advantages to generate insecurity in the country just to destabilize it and some part of Europe. She should have taken into account this aspect. It's for this exact reason that the executive director of the Transatlantic Academy, Stephen Szabo, states that the European nations must make it a crime for their nationals to participate in the violent struggles in the Middle East, since it will be an offense for those sympathizers of those groups. Once the problem was declared, he proposed that, and I quote, governments have to take longer-term actions to integrate immigrant communities, including by dismantling their ghettoization. Dispersal into smaller, mixed communities should be the goal, rather than sealing off immigrants from broader society. Szabo, 2016. This was exactly what didn't happen in Germany. The immigrants were concentrated in one zone, and the population didn't accept their entrance into the country and didn't respect them well because of their culture and where they came from. Finally, she then took into account the lack of education among all the immigrants, and with such a big number like that one, it will be very hard to help them and/or control them.
Secondly, within the same scope of immigration is the case of Sweden. It is worth mentioning the fact that Sweden is in one way or another has been somewhat defamed by Donald Trump on different occasions in trying to mythologize the situation in Sweden. For this, Angelo Flores, author of the article, has various facts and tools that allow us to know what is true and what is not in front of the entry and exit of the immigrants within the Swedish territory. On the one hand, it is true that Sweden has allowed the entry of thousands and thousands of immigrants. However, the fact that Sweden is being Islamized, as Trump claims, is totally false, in part because the entry of thousands of immigrants creates diversity. That is, within Sweden, there are Catholics, Christians, Yazidis, Druzes, atheists, and others. It is also worth highlighting the fact that in spite of Sweden's generosity towards immigration, Sweden is a Nordic country that has managed to control the situation. After all the Scandinavian countries are the global example today. Likewise, you cannot judge a country because of the strategies of others. Some believe that due to the fact that many European countries have been attacked by the Islamist movement, they believe that Islamist attacks are common in Sweden, which is totally false. In principle, only one attempt at an Islamist attack in the history of Sweden has been reported. So you cannot point to immigration as guilty of all the world of international tragedies, since there are countries that do not know how to control these types of situations.
According to what was mentioned previously about the two lectures, I think that immigration is taken into account not as a problem because if we know that people is not looking at the other country as people that is coming to finish the economic situation, we we are going to have a problem. I know that maybe what Donald Trump says in one of the lectures is that the Sweden is being Islamicized and they are having problems with the culture. And I think that this is not a problem because the diversity can be as a solution, and we can manage the immigration if we control them, because we are not going to say that immigrants are going to receive everything and they are going to receive many privilege because they are in a bad situation. I think that they need to work and they need to want those economic help that the country is giving. And if that country is helping immigrants, it's because they have the economic situation good and they can help. Because we can say that because the immigrants are going to invade the territory and they are going to affect the country. And I think that that is not the idea, because this is not an international tragedy. I think that the immigrants are going to be as a solution, and this is not a bad thing. I think that immigrants can be as a solution to help other countries to demonstrate that what they did in history is not what they are doing now. In the case of Germany, what they did in Second World War is not the same what they did today, and what they are doing in terms of helping immigrants.
Yes, and I am according with you, because in the case of Germany, that's the solution of how the society is trying to, like, I don't know how to redeem or to redeem from the rest of the world, and the problems related with the acts and the terrorist acts is not related with the amount of immigration policy, but it is around how the people is acting or is taking position from those events, because we need to take into account the culture that Germany has presented on the past. We need to take the differences from the immigrants and Germany, the grievance, the greed, and that's how these acts have been taking places. And in the case of Angela Merkel, she has well, we think that she has a good position in terms, or in the case that she is acting in order to save lives, and she's taking a type of a respectful time in order to make the people came down, and then she ask she take positions, she communicate to all the population. And also in the case of Switch, in which the problems are not according to the immigration, but they are according to external problems that have not taken places in the context of both lectures, which means that the authors, in the case of the lecture of Germany, are wrong, uh, because of the position of blame Angela Merkel, and in the other cases, and in the other lecture, are good and coherent in terms of say that the immigration is a positive action, in order that because of Swiss has a good economic situation, they make possible so many opportunities to them.
We finally come to the conclusion that the solution to this problem actually involves using one of the positive situations that can be seen in the articles to use it to the negative one. We're specifically discussing why the immigrants works in Sweden but not necessarily in Germany. The immigration in Sweden is very cultural. It's not new. It's not seen as a duty or as a responsibility like it is in Germany, because they feel responsible for, well, the Holocaust and everything. but it is seen as a goodwill from their people. What we're talking about here is changing both the immigrants so they can adapt better to to the society they are entering in, because they are different obviously, and also adapting the locals into what they're about to expect. So for example, one of the many things that Muslim people don't agree with when they arrive to the Occidental world is seeing topless beaches in in Europe, which is very popular and very cultural in there, and they see it as an offense when it's not. It's just a cultural aspect of their life. So what can be done is workshops with certain group of people, or you take these people and let them know the culture they're going into, so they when they make the judgment about it, at least they are informed about it, they know what they're talking about. They're not just hating on those topless beaches because that's what their culture told you about, but as from an experience. And they are, well, and the same thing can be said about the locals. um, with little children is pretty much it's very easy to solve this problem, because they can be taught from a young age that they're no better than the others, that they they are there to accept others, and that their territory is not only theirs but on the people who need it. But with probably it will be more difficult with older people, and they don't have access to technology, so it's harder to get to them, um, to change their perception about these 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 immigrants. So what could be done is taking old people, groups of old people, not everyone obviously, into meeting the families of immigrants that will represent the majority of immigrants that are not in Europe looking for trouble, raping people, committing crimes, but are there to look for a brighter future. And when some of the old people get to know this, and and change their minds, they can also influence other older people that are in their social circle, so that a cultural change can be done, not just an idea of I'm committed to this cause because I owe it to them because we killed a lot of these people. No, because it is a cultural thing that needs to be changed from the behavior of both the immigrants and both the locals.